All right, welcome to episode number 30 of Music, Spirit and Accountability. We are blessed to have Kellie Hurley back with us again. Kellie was on one of the earlier podcasts. Kellie from Energetically Inspired, an amazing work that Kel does here in on the Gold Coast in Queensland. And we've been speaking a little bit lately about bring in more prosperity, bring in more abundance into our worlds. And I guess we're seeing a lot in this time, friends and um, entrepreneurs struggling a little with holding that consistently and bringing in that abundance and prosperity consistently. And Kel, some of the work you've been doing lately, really inspiring people to step more into that and holding that more consistently in their field. So I just love to go for gold and get this knowledge so we can all bring it into our worlds more consistently. I think we'll just open it there, Kel, and yeah, share some of your magic with us about what are you seeing and how are you helping people to consistently bring this more into their world. What do they need to do?
Well, thank you guys for having me here again. And yeah, I think that I see it so often that there's all these people have these beautiful, they're soul entrepreneurs, right? They have all these beautiful gifts and they want to deliver all this beautiful magic to help with transforming the world and the frequency of the world. But they're not being able to anchor that into their energetic fields and not being able to create prosperity and abundance. We so often end up having to trade things, trading our time or trading our relationships. We might be trading our health, right? To try and create wealth. And most people seem to find that there's just, it's like we fill one part of the pie and we're taking it from something else. So we're not holding abundance in all those things that we really desire. We're losing some of the valuable things that are actually most important to us to bringing us joy and raising our frequencies.
Absolutely, I can definitely relate to that. So, um, again, sort of, what's the sorry to get straight into it. What's the solution, or how do you frame this balance to make it all work?
Well, for me, it's very the energetics, right? It's all energy. I mean, we are tuning forks to the universe, right? And if it's soul work, it's our soul that needs to be truly anchored into the body, but aligned with what we're doing as well. And most people aren't actually got a strong relationship to their soul. It's not like they even, daily go, hey, soul, can you help me with this thing? They don't lean into the container of being provided for. They feel like they lean into their mind more so, and we're going, okay, how do I do this? What is the next thing I need to do to make this work? Instead of actually leaning into the energetics that the universe can provide so many more ways, and so can our soul. And we seem to actually fail at using this one tool that is actually makes us soul aligned, because the soul is what guides us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people too, there's a big piece around this. It's the nervous system. Our if our nervous system isn't being able to hold a place of trust in what we're doing and looking for the how and using the mechanical manifestation tools, so we're actually in anxiety. It's like, oh gosh, what do I do next? How do I get leads? How do I bring more people in? How do I create $10,000 a week? And we're always in this word of how, and not actually leaning into the soul aspect. We're using our mind to try and create a path instead of letting the universe and our soul actually just show us the next step.
Yeah, love that. I love what you said about the tuning forks. And there's times in my life personally where I've really stepped into sort of some of the things you're suggesting with trusting in the universe and really asking the universe and being in alignment with that. And it's like the more I look back on it, every time I've done that, things have just gone bam, 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 bam. But there's got to be a purity in that. There's got to be something like you've got to believe, as obvious as it sounds, or as spiritual or as crazy as it sounds to some. Every time I've done that in my life where I've believed in it, and I've also I think it's always been enhanced by those frequencies of gratitude and joy when I bring those vibrational frequencies. But like literally every time I've done it in my life, things have fallen into alignment. And if I've tried to do it kind of like forcefully, but I'm not really feeling it, or I'm kind of doubting myself, it doesn't work. So what's with that?
Well, that kind of comes really back to, I mean, when we're in our heart and gratitude, that is a higher frequency than living in our mind. Our mind is a beta frequency, so it's a lower vibration. When we're in this place of deep trust and deep surrender, we're actually, and you said, like you said, living in joy and happiness, we're in this higher frequency. So we are actually energetically more expanded. We're more connected to the universe. We're more connected into flow. And we actually sort of get this, even if sometimes it's like we think something's meant to go a certain way and then we get diverted. And, so often at that point we're like, oh, but, because we expected that door to open and that to be the way it was supposed to be created. Yet the universe is just taking us on another direction because this is actually going to create even more than what we even dreamed. Like, it's beyond our wildest dreams. Yeah. And bringing in the right people that might actually make the process so much easier. And that's where most people actually stop and struggle, is they don't surrender there, and they're like, oh goodness, this isn't working, and they go back to this disappointed energy. So what happens? Their energy fields contract. We actually end up like being smaller energetically. And when you can see my hands, like, they're small. This is a container. How are you supposed to hold abundance in a space that's this small? When your energy field's this small, if you want proper prosperity and abundance, you must have a large container. You must be able to hold a larger amount of energy, and know that you can hold that energy, and your nervous system can hold that energy. And I think that's a big thing, is a lot of people just don't have that ability to manage their nervous system. If something triggers us, how quickly can we reset ourselves back to feeling joy and abundance in every moment? Or, I know there's days where I get like, have to reset myself because certain things trigger me, and I'm like, oh, because I'm human, right? But my ability to reset is the power behind that. My ability to stay present with myself when I am kind of a little bit out of like, my tuning forks out of whack, and my energy is kind of scattering, and therefore my energy fields are contracting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And Mike, I would say, in my opinion, I'm a master, I want to say, or someone, let's say, that's really consciously focusing on resetting their energy and putting practices in place is a big part of your devotion and a consistent theme in your life. So, how do you feel about everything that Kel's sharing?
Yeah, I had a question for Kel, where if I look at society today as a whole, and I'll start with men, we're left brain thinking, we're very logical, where we run to the head, and then, generalization, women are moving towards being more masculine as well because they feel like they need to, because they're not being supported by men, and the old patriarchal system failed them. So they feel like they need to step into their masculinity and provide and be boss babes and all of the stupid other shit that's out there that they're saying. but, but the education system, from we were 4 years old, indoctrinated right through all our formative years, through 0 to 7, 7 to 14, 14 to 18, and then even those that go to university, we're validated, we're appreciated, we're rewarded, we're celebrated for using our brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've had their first 21 years, potentially, at least, or 18 years of their life, being told to go to their brain and move away from their body, being told to think your way through this, or find the how, like you said. That's a lot of unraveling. How do we unravel 18 to 21 years of indoctrination into a bullshit system that doesn't work, but it does make good process workers and factory workers for the industrial age? That's amazing. However, it just stifles humanity. How do we get humanity out of that shit system into being in touch with their body, being in tune with source, and manifesting like you have already spoken to? Because that's a lot of unraveling.
Yeah, and I know because I've grown up in the system as well, right? And I still see it with my children, right? We as humans, I mean, the human part of us needs to get to know our human side. And then there's this sort of place where a lot of us, if we're spiritual, come back to unraveling, actually, who are we? what brings us joy, what, when we're younger, we do actually lead into a lot more around what we're told we need to be, not
Mm.
listening to our hearts, right? And so when we start to actually look at things from that energy frequency, it's like, what actually fills my cup up? That, it's going back, when I've started doing the energy work around this space, it was literally, I lent into my inner child. What did she have to say? I lent into my energetic fields, like my timelines. There's so many timelines that can exist here. And you're right, like we are in such a masculine thing, which is, that's the nervous system that's creating this mechanical manifestation, which just means that we're having more resistance. It's like we're
Mm.
carrying weight all the time to build up this thing. And people can be very successful like that. There's no doubt about it, but it is definitely a harder way to go about it.
Totally.
Um, for me, it's like, if I can shift one person, say a family, and teach them enough that they are able to start to unravel this. Like when we start to look at quantifiable things, that we actually start to change a frequency inside of our body that can be quantifiable, so we can put it into multiple areas. That's going to impact our family. That's going to impact their children. And that's going to impact not just one person. It starts to change everything. And I mean, I can't change society, but we can create so much more awareness around that there is actually better ways and easier ways to doing this. The thing is that we need to actually surrender into listening within, like connecting back to the body and into our intuition, into our soul. And that just, it's like anything. You've spent 18 years of learning how to, read a book in the younger years, or learning skills. You're just learning a new skill,
Mm.
right? It's just, actually, for me, it was like, if I sat down and just even for 10 minutes every day did my energy work and tuned into my soul, that connection got stronger. But it's just the commitment. Most people just don't actually put themselves in that space, that they're either frustrated enough that they want change, or sit in the growth mindset. And for me, the more I did this, actually started to connect into that place, the more my life felt amazing. There was no doubt about it. The more productive I became, the more I would actually still use my mind to, do physical things. I still have to learn. I still have to learn how to work in a system, in a society. It's not like I'm going to go live in a bubble and run away from it. Um, but it's actually using it more aligned action. The
Mm.
actual, most of my work comes down to the energetics. If we do energy, 80% energy, and tuning into our body and learning how to do that. And it can become very simple with the right coaching and with the right tools. Yeah. But I guess most of us don't have a relationship with our body. We don't have a relationship with energy. We don't have a relationship with source. You don't have a relationship with the money and the way it comes in. How can you expect to have wealth? How
Mm.
can you live, or, if you're wanting to have a soul aligned entrepreneurship, but you're not soul aligned because you have no relationship to your soul?
Mm.
These are the things. It's like your relationship to everything is the foundation to creating better prosperity, abundance, understanding.
There was a word you used just then that made me sort of reel back in my chair, and it came to me when you were describing, for those just on audio, when Kelly was talking about the contraction. She was having her hands sort of like in a grasping a ball, a soccer ball, and the word surrender came to me, because to surrender, I have to open.
Mhm.
It's that expansive. My arms drop to the side, and I can hold a bigger container. And as you were talking, earlier, around that container being contracted and open, was the word surrender, and has been a prevalent word in my life lately. But and it's continuing to be strong, and that feels like the theme of the undercurrent of what you're talking about is, can you surrender into the trusting the universe, trusting the process, and there's this beautiful phrase, is thy will, not my will. My will get me so far, and thy will, which is God's will or universal source, whatever your alignment is, I don't mind what it is, but it's my will is so finite, where thy will is infinite. It's just, can I surrender to that? the music and the power in that.
Yeah, I remember years ago, someone saying to me, like, you have these dreams and desires, but do you ever actually open the space to go beyond your like wildest dreams? And I
Mm.
was like, wildest dreams beyond your desires are actually where your soul and source comes involved, right? They actually open doors, and it has happened to me over and over again. You know, when I did my first co-authored book, it came to me. You know, the source, or wherever it was, God, whatever you want to call it, delivered that to me. You know, it wasn't something that I was looking for, but it was an opportunity that I couldn't say no to either. And, you know, Source is always delivering new people in our field, there's new experiences, and it's just learning how can we surrender. And you're right. The biggest thing is trust.
Mm.
It's hard for people to trust. Most people don't actually realize how much their nervous system is running the show, because they haven't got the ability to open themselves to trust, to surrender, to being able to let go of attachment, to
Mm.
actually going into that place where they're like, it's okay, I'm going to be held, I'm going to be protected,
Yeah.
that life will support me. I will be supported if I believe that. And there's numerous times where I've had to take myself back to that place of going, I'm trying to control right now. If I'm trying to control, or I'm looking for a how, my nervous system is actually driving the show right now, which means
Mm.
I'm in my mindset. And if anything I was going to teach the whole world, would be mastering our nervous system, getting some idea and control of actually how often it is navigating your life.
Constantly. It's
Mhm.
constantly.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's, for me, that's the biggest thing, is seeing that, because that's that contraction. That's that lack of trust. That's, yeah. And I know, because I've listened to myself and it still happens. I'm like, oh, what about, how do I make this? And then I go, oh, I'm doing the how again. I'm actually looking for something mechanically, and I'm going to start doing action aligned to that. Most people that really want to surrender into proper manifestation need to surrender, not mechanically. They actually are doing a surrender of trusting and listening to their soul,
Mm.
listening to what gets delivered in their environment energetically, and then leaning into that space. It's probably one of the biggest challenges for us as humans, because we have had so many generations and ancestors. It's all in our blood, it's in our DNA, of scarcity, of, you know, these are codes that live in our body. It's the codes that we're, as you said, we're growing up, like, start school with, and told that we need to be these things to be successful. So there's all these energetic patterns and codes that live in us, but most of it is anchored into the nervous system.
Yeah, it's interesting. People think that, you know, I believe my work is endless. The day I draw my last breath will probably be my last lesson. But, you know, people say, oh, I've done so much work on myself. And I'm like, well, if you think you've finished on your own, start working on your ancestors. You know, like, there is an endless and infinite amount of work that, as you said, lives in our body, lives in our DNA, it lives in our blood. Um, all the way back to Paleolithic times, to the first recording of man, you know. So we've got all that to deal with.
And, well, we're going into the golden age, and this is where they're starting to look back at this time that we're coming into now will be the accelerated space of awakening. And we're lucky because we're part of that awakening. You know, we're in the last 10 years or 20 years, the amount of things that have changed in energetics and the understanding of quantum and the power we actually have has is like way beyond anything that's ever been in hundreds of thousands of years. You know, we're probably going back to the ancient Egyptians and things like that. They all lived in those times. They all had that understanding of the
Mm.
actual power they lived within them, and how they can actually create from that, tuning into that space through meditation, or, you know, through calming their nervous system. And I don't, I guess, I mean, I can't say why it all had to change at some stage, you know, but we definitely went backwards as humans at some stage. And now we're actually back at a point where this is happening. And I feel personally, in the next 100 years, there'll be significant changes here on Earth for humans.
What would you say to someone listening, Kelly, that is maybe just starting out, and that could be a cataclysmic death and rebirth journey for them, with this moving into unawareness into awareness, or unconscious into a level of consciousness, or at least rising in it. What are some of the tools and tips that you might share with them to help navigate that rocket ship of a of a, of a launch, that they're going to go
And
through?
just to add to that too, Kel, like what would you say to someone who wants to do this, but they've got three kids and they're a single parent and they have to pay the
Mm.
bills and they don't even feel they have the capacity to even step into that and they've been wanting to do it for years?
Yeah, well, I'm a single mum, right? And I've got two little boys. And yeah, I remember. And when you both of this, it's good because they're pointing both into the same story for me. Was, when I went through my divorce and went through all my abuse and became a single mom with two little kids, right? And my life came crashing down. It literally, it was what some people call the dark night of the soul, whatever you want to call it. It was where my reality just came down and shattered around me, and it basically left me on my bare bones, on the foundations of like rock bottom, and I sat there one day, and I think this is what one of the best things that I ever could have done was I lent into I was like, okay, if there's a God or a soul or something, I need help. I need something to help me, guide me through the steps. What do I need to do to get myself out of the way I felt? For me, my nervous system was fried. I was like literally triggered into PTSD consistently on a daily basis, and it was impacting my productivity, my ability to parent my children, to be happy. I was triggered all the time, and so sadly, it's a lot of the time our soul's initiation process comes with turmoil. It's there. It's going to shred away the reality that our society's imprinted onto us. That you're supposed to get married, have your kids, have a beautiful home, and you're going to be happily ever after. And it's honestly bullshit, because you can be married and extremely unhappy. There's so much more to life than just getting married and having kids and having a home. And this is where it started to lean into what things lit me up, what things was I curious about, there was this space that I just wanted to change. I was frustrated. I wasn't going to continue to live the way I was. Um, and I wanted more for my children. My children were my leverage. I was like, my choice was that I didn't want to give up that quality time with my children. I didn't have them to have them in permanent childcare. And I was determined to find a way, and just bit by bit, step by step. And I think that was, me surrendering and listening, and how many times that all of a sudden the universe showed up to help support me
Mm.
where I didn't know that that was there. And it was a beautiful reminder so many times when I went to try and go into mechanical processes. Hang on, the universe has always had my back. It's our soul's, like, it's the soul's father and the earth is the mother. If you really think about the energetics of that, a true aligned healthy mother or father is going to provide for its child
Mm.
there, right? But what kind of relationship do you have with that energetic father and that energetic mother, and how much trust do you have in it providing for you? Because if you're not trusting in it, it doesn't deliver. If you're not asking for it to support you, it doesn't. It just lets you do your own thing. And this is part of a soul's contract, is it can't intervene in your free will. You have a choice. And so
Wow.
life is hard, and for that, like those mothers, and I wouldn't say to anyone, go and give up your job and pack it all in really quickly, because you have to provide. We have got, but there is, don't close your eyes off to that there is other options. The support came in for me, and every time, out of the blue, something aligned to make my life work and make it better, one step by one step. And I feel really blessed that I actually asked my soul for guidance. and I listened to the whispers. It was whispers. I had to quiet my mind from time to time to hear the whispers.
Wow, what an
Yeah.
answer. Thank you,
Yeah.
Cal. That was so beautiful. Could sometimes I come with these, like, I don't know, 3D questions. Could you just tell me a little bit what a whisper sounds like to you? Is it actually like a physical, is it words like in the English language? Is it actually like a whisper, or is it something different?
Well, the whisper for everybody will be slightly different depending on their clairsentience or claircognance or whatever their clair gift is. I got the stronger one of claircognance, so it's a knowing. I just know. And for at the beginning, it was learning how to trust in that knowing
Mm.
because there's nothing there to verify or validate it. I can't ask somebody else to confirm what this knowing is. It's within me. And each time it popped up, like it could be don't trust somebody. And I'd be like, oh, why? They seem okay, And then something would happen and I was like, oh, I should listen to that. There was just these things that would happen and I'd be like, wow, I needed to listen to that. It was there. It was whispering to me. And more and more it for me it became, yeah, just a beautiful blessing because I'm lucky to have claircognizance. Some people have clairvoyance, some people have clairsentience. It's a sense. And the more I started to practice tuning into my body, which was a hard thing because I was very masculine for a while. I became a single mom and yeah, I had to provide, I had to create boundaries and, rebuild myself up. And so I was very in a masculine energy for a while. And dropping back into embodiment and listening to my body and what was like, how did my body feel in the moment? My clairsentience activated. And I could tune into other people's bodies then with my healing sessions and be like, oh, I can feel this. And then listen to my body and be like, hey, what would that mean? Because so often it was mirroring something that my consciousness could understand, so these things would activate and then it was getting to know them. It was like learning, like a child learning how to play in it and being curious instead of being shut down from it. It was like, how does this work? And just playing around for a little while. um, and I think the best thing that I could have done was just giving myself that 10 minutes every day. When my baby was little, he'd go to sleep and I'd be like, even though I had a million things I needed to do, was take that 10 minutes and go and do my energy work because my life became more productive. I could think clearer afterwards and I would get these intuitive hits while I was doing that as to something I needed to try or, and I became a little bit like a child playing with things. And children play joyfully. Yeah, they're curious. They want to unpack things and get to know it a bit more and create a relationship with that. And so it really is learning how to bring out that place within us that is curious and just create some space. Just a little bit for that mum that's, like you said, has 3 kids, to create that 10 minutes a day. If you can't create 10 minutes, they say the people that can't create 10 minutes for an energy practice probably needs to be the one that's meditating for 2 or 3 hours a day.
Mm.
And I couldn't do it. I definitely couldn't when my kids were small. There was no way. My head was a monkey mind. It still is sometimes, right? It was finding practices that worked in simple things.
I love that,
Doesn't it?
starting small, just those 5-10 minutes a day is an option that we can all practice. There's no excuse not to, right? Yeah, beautiful, Cal. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. I played with this idea because I did. I think I was really blessed when I went into all my awakening 7 years ago. And I created a beautiful life where I have time freedom and to be there for my children, and I'm always provided for. And a couple of months ago, I realized a couple of things weren't flowing very well in my life, and I was like things I wanted to create, and I got this intuitive hit. you're in a comfort zone. You've created a life that is so comfortable, right? That your subconscious wants to sabotage that because, hang on, why would you change it? And I was like, hang on, but I have so much more to offer the world. And since then, I've done some sort of, like a little bit more of personal growth stuff. And it was interesting. There was like this guy who said there's these kind of 4 categories that people can live in. And 2 of them will create greatness and 2 will get stuck. And there's the one that's the victim that blames life for everything and, never wants to look internally. There's the person that sits in the comfort zone, right? They've got no drive to get themselves out of it. And then somebody who's super frustrated, which is where I was years ago. I was frustrated. I didn't want to be here and I was not going to stay there, or there's the person that leans into personal growth, which I also did a little bit as well. And I was like, yeah, that's why I was looping a little bit in this space, but we're meant to keep changing and evolving. And I dropped into these processes, I guess maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, where I just made 10 minutes every day, even though I'm an energy healer, but I was dedicated and committed to clearing my field, watching my thoughts, just breathing through my body, clearing out anything that's unaligned, because every day we'll have thoughts that are unaligned. You just have to set that intention, creating space and space to receive only that of the highest of vibrations. I just set some basic things up that every day I did this for 10 minutes. I went for a walk around the lake and listened to my audiobook almost every day as well, because I know that drops me into a beautiful energy. And it was mind blowing what came into my field so fast that the universe was like, all right, you're committed to this and you're doing the things work. Like, I know these things work because I've done it before and learned some more tools since then. And, in 1 week, like $10,000 just dropped into my account out of nowhere, just like that. And I was like, yeah, there you go, universe, doing it again, And then there was so many other things that month. I literally wrote them down as the month went on of all the things that just came into my field. Even my son was like, he wants a trailer and a boat. And he got just a tinny, but I said to him, he was looking online. I said, just wait, you'll find one that, just don't jump into anything yet. And then we got given one. He just kind of neighbor down the road and they're like, hey, you can have this if you want it. And he was like, are you serious? And I said to him, see, it's just those simple things of tuning in and allowing space to receive for them to be delivered to you. So, it just, again, it just proves over and over again, the work's there and it's easy to be done. It doesn't have to be difficult. You just got to commit. And you just have to be self-aware throughout your day. If my children say to me, hey, Mom, I want, they want to buy something, I don't say we don't have enough money or I can't afford that right now. There's choices around the things that you would say are, oh, I'm choosing to spend our money towards our holiday, or, I'm choosing to spend the money towards something else at the moment. It's not that I can't afford it. I'm making an informed choice about where I put my money, right? So it's watching all those little things that can catch you out every day, and my children learn from me doing these things with them, that it's, I create abundance, I create prosperity, I create what I want in my reality, but I have to be tuned into what I'm saying, thinking and feeling in as many minutes as I can. And I tell you what, some mornings, yesterday I was a little bit out of tune and I was like, yeah, it's one of those days. I'm definitely, like I could just feel it. There was no reason why. It was just my energy was just not in its highest place. And that's okay. It happens sometimes. But other days, I'm so in tune that it's like things are just popping into my field. And it comes down to your own frequency and your willingness to watch yourself, to be awake in every moment.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Kel, there's so many golden nuggets in there. And that last sharing, that being at peace with what is, it's so easy to be so harsh on ourselves when we have those off days, but that's part of the journey. And yeah, that's such an art form to be at peace with that. I love what you said earlier as well when I said, how do people kind of incorporate this into their world, that are wanting that or feeling they're too busy. And part of that story was something along the lines of, well, basically the universe is just going to kick your ass. At some point, the floor is going to be ripped out from underneath you, and it just will. And I think we can all sort of relate to that. And so often it's the catalyst for change. And that 10-minute practice a day, I think, is huge. And also what you just shared about the audio book, for me, I've said this a lot in the podcast, when I'm in that routine of putting that, I ideally like to do an hour or even an hour and a half is my ideal time in the morning to be doing fitness and audiobooks, and it all revolves around the audiobooks because once I'm into it, I get I just get so much from them. It completely changes the color of my day to have that time for me in the morning, and that always leads to more exercise, to more mindfulness, to more meditation, to more manifestation, to more of all the things that you're speaking about. So I think that's another great stepping stone if people are wanting to get more into engaging these things. Just make that 10 minutes in the morning or sometime in the day to have that audio book and find something that really resonates with you to motivate you, because man, every time it just changes everything. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely inspires me, motivates me. I'm like, oh, that's a new thing that I could be playing with. And just sometimes it's things that other people say, and they can collapse time for you. They can actually deliver pieces that might have been missing. And you're like, oh. And sometimes these things as well. You just haven't used them for a while and just need that nudge and that reminder to step back in and do those things, And that's what the last 8 weeks, I sat there and did, was just allowing little reminders and putting notes in my little notebook in my phone to, so the next day when I'd sit in my meditation, I would bring in what I learnt from the day before, and keeping it simple. It doesn't have to be complex. And I think that's where people get weighed down with, is letting it be complex.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't mornings, but I made space, in that month. I was like, okay, I'm going to set my alarm half an hour before the kids, just so I could just drop in. And my day would always be so much more higher vibing than getting up and racing around straight away with the kids to try and get them out the door to school. Giving myself that 30 minutes where I could just listen to a meditation or whatever I felt like, it can make a massive difference as well. So I was creating space. I didn't do that this morning because I didn't have the best sleep last night, but most days I actually drop into that, and I don't like early mornings, but I was like, I want the change. I'm committed to the change. And
yeah.
that's where it comes down to, is your free will. Remember, your soul can't go against your will. And I have only ever heard my soul yell at me once, and it was because it was something life-threatening for my son. And other than that, it's always whispers, but if you're actually asking it for its help and asking source for its help, it's going to help you.
I was listening to a Gary V book yesterday, and he said something that really landed with me. It feels relevant to share now, that with these creating, like for me, I've just spent the last couple of years creating a new project launching in a few months' time. And I've been working, around the clock, super motivated, super into it. And he said something like, whatever you choose, whatever your mission becomes in these times of clarity and working that out, like the only way to basically avoid things like burnout and these sorts of things is to do what you love, is to really be in your heart. Unless you absolutely love what you do, you'll burn out. You'll hit that wall. It's something that I see a lot, and with people constantly creating new things, finding their way, adding new things to their path, I see that burnout probably more commonly, and there's kind of going around in circles, going around in cycles. I guess it's all part of the journey to work it out, but that really landed for me what he said, because I feel like so on point with what I'm doing, because I just love it. Like, I love music. I love sharing content. I love inspiring people to play music. Most importantly, I just love music. I love to play music, constantly up leveling and learning. It just lights me up. And creating all these things around that is just my little secret weapon to my life, really. So coming back to creating that space to find out what that is, and I truly believe that no matter how random or how big or how small that thing that's in your heart, that's really, if you can clear the space and do the things that you need to put the, I think you nailed it with that time and space to be able to even feel into that energy of what that even looks like, and just continually diving that little bit deeper into that and letting your heart speak, letting your soul speak its truth on your mission. When that comes to light and you start focusing on that kind of that one thing, it just feels like everything changes and it feels right, and there's just that abundance of energy and focus and yeah, just rolling with that. It's potent for me anyway.
Mm.
Yeah, look
And
at that. You
sorry,
go,
what
Kel.
was that?
You go.
Oh, I love that because for me, it was what is, well, that's soul aligned to you, right? Because it fulfills your heart. You feel that passion and that excitement in it. And for me, it was the same thing. Like what I do and the work I do, energy work and teaching and that. The more I've looked into like the human blueprint side of ourselves, because we have a human blueprint and we have a soul, and that makes our spirit. And when I looked into what is my human blueprint, it almost every like gene keys or all the different things that I've looked at always really aligned to, yes, that's so me. Like I love teaching and I love sharing these things. I'm a manifester, so it's really about leading the way and sharing things that are slightly unique, and I really love that. But it took time for me to come into that energy because it wasn't who I thought I was as a kid. I was always wanting to people please and fit in, whereas
Yeah.
I'm actually not supposed to. I'm supposed to lead the way. And some people see that as being a masculine thing. It just means I'm very strong, feminine energy that stands true in her power. And I love it. It fills me up. It's like every day, me doing this stuff doesn't feel like work,
Yeah.
but also making space for me to create more abundance in that energy as well is really about knowing who am I, what lights me up, and how can I be serving humanity as well. Like your work helps others, Jay. Like the things you do is helping others, and it brings them into peace by listening to the music and them learning how to play their own music. And for me, it's like, how do I help others heal and find a place of prosperity, of love in their life that actually fills them up. And more we lean into, that's another piece of becoming soul aligned and finding abundance and prosperity, is actually having a relationship with who we are and what fills our cup up.
Yeah. Beautiful. Kel, what were you going to say, Mike?
It's along a similar thread. We sort of started the conversation by saying we're thinking, how are we going to get there? And that's like the old antiquated way. And what you're both just talking about then is, when we work on that old way, we're using a different energy system. We're working with our food that we consume, the water that we consume, and the energy that we can actually harvest from our body. And that's very limited. And that's how we were doing it the old way, which is the hard way. We're dragging ourselves through mud. But what you were both alluding to then is actually tapping into a higher energy field, which is our soul. And when we're soul's guided desires, this is our soul speaking through us. Our purpose or our mission is why we're on this rock, is for both of you is to teach, both of you is to share your knowledge, both is to share your wisdom, be it music or energetics. And you could run on that without eating. You could work when it's not work at this point. You could be in your purpose all day long without work, without sleep, without food, without blinking, because you're just in your passion, in your purpose. And so this is why Kelly was saying it's so much easier, because we're not operating on the amount of food that I consume, the amount of calories I have to sustain this effort. It's effortless. And it's almost like a plane, like trying to get a plane off the ground. There's a lot of fuel, a lot of energy, a lot of force, because it's heavy and it's cumbersome. But once it gets up into the top about 30,000 feet and it's just got the wind, it's cruising at 900 kilometers an hour and just effortlessly flowing. And that's the difference. We're either working down here in the grind or we're working up here in flow. And I think as a unanimous decision, we're encouraging people to work in flow.
Yep. And it's really, it's knowing, I think, the less resistance is knowing how to raise our frequency, how to raise our vibration, how to be aligned to our heart, to our soul, and to surrendering to the universe, you know. So there's so many beautiful things that come into learning these things, like whether it's grounding in the presence, it's the nervous system regulation, it's knowing who we are and creating a relationship with that person and loving that person for all of our pieces, you know. Like there's parts of me that some days I'm like, yeah, she's not the healthiest version of herself today, but she's okay with that because it's, you know, it's just how we live as a human in a, you know, a linear timeline. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those things don't feel like hard work for me a lot of the time. It feels like space. And I think there was some times where I was like, okay, when I had a lot of space, like the universe say didn't deliver me the clients I wanted for the week or something like that, I had to watch myself that I was like not feeling like I wasn't successful. Usually I would just energetically tune into what can I be doing in promotion, or what can I, maybe this is a time to fill my cup. And the universe still always provided some other way. It was never like that I didn't have the money to pay for my bills or anything like that. It always came through. So I just had to watch how my mind thought that it needed to be a certain way, because I was still growing and I was still feeling connected to myself and still loving my life, and nothing should be pulling me out of that vibration. And I think that's the truth, is when I look at some things, if it's really pulling me out of my vibration and mucking with my head and my nervous system, it's something I need to sit with and work out and change.
Beautiful, Kel. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to have you on the podcast again. Is there anything else you wanted to share, Kel, today? Is there anything else that's in the current for you?
No. Like I said, it's something, I've been seeing so much about this recently, and knowing that we're moving into the golden age, I just want people to really know that abundance and prosperity and wealth, all of that is natural within your soul frequency.
Mm.
Um, Really the ability to anchor that into, activating it again, because a lot of time it's just laying dormant and it's being overridden by other codes and patterns that are actually affecting us from living fully soul aligned. Yeah. So when we start to tune into that energy and listening to our soul and getting that internal guidance, life completely transforms.
Yeah, it never gets old hearing those sorts of concepts. It always just, for me, lights up my soul and makes me go, yeah, man, 100%. Like, yeah, and it's so easy to for people to choose to doubt that. It really
Yeah.
is. Carefully, like you said, I carefully chose my words then, Kel, after what you just said before, just that.
When you say that, it's funny. I was like, how do I feel like this is about to come into the field? I pulled these out the other day, and I actually just did something on TikTok about it. So, do you guys know Dr. Emoto? Like the water
Yeah,
test
I've got
that
his
he
book on my desk here.
have you? Well, I did this with Hunter when he was in year one. We created 2 jars, cooked rice,
Yeah, well,
still jars. And I said to him, this one's going to be our negative words, because he was going through that stage of, saying, I hate this, and, all these really, and he was just having, as kids do, and I was like, okay, I want to show him the power of what his words do to the physical form, right? And most people don't realize that when we start to actually really get this, we start to really watch what we say and how we say it. And I'm sometimes going to pull myself out because words just kind of come out. I've got a little bit of the gift of the gab, and I'm like, oh, hang on, that needs to change, And so I did this with him, and then he took it into his school for show and tell, and his teacher asked me to come in and do it with his class. So we did it with his class. Now, these jars were from Hunter in year one. and I've still got the other ones as well. But because this was done with 25 kids over a month period, and they just wrote on one of the jars that you're the best and you're amazing. Now, Hunter is in grade 6 now. Here's the other jar, which is you're the worst and you are disgusting. If you can see, I don't, you, because you guys are on, but you can
Wow.
see the significant difference between those two jars, yeah? And I've, like I said, still got them all these years later. This one's starting to get a little bit grayish now, but it's 6 years old. 6 years this has been sitting in there, right? And that one within the month was black like that. And this one was still pure white. So we're looking at like 5 years. And that's been really powerful for my kids. Like for Hunter, when he was going through stages, when his dad was quite ill and he was starting to get really upset and this negative mindset was coming in. And I said to him, how can we not talk moldy? Like, how can we bring that white rice energy to
Yeah.
your dad? Because he's down in the dumps right now. But we know the power of our thoughts can change matter and reality around us. What can we do to help him? And now, even now when he starts to think, say, oh, I'm not, can't do that. I'm not smart enough. I can bring him back to these jars and he will stop and recorrect himself to realize, to actually see with his own eyes, just speaking to these jars of rice had an impact in what they looked like within even a week. But after the 30 days at school, it was significant. And it's now been something that I've been able to continue to use with him, but for myself too, to remember, am I actually speaking the high, most pure vibration to keep my body in that functioning state, that my cells are not going moldy or becoming toxic because I'm thinking negative things.
Wow.
Wow. It's crazy, hey. I've got to do that with Lil. We've got to do that for sure.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just thinking the same thing.
Guys, thank you so much for your time today. It's such a pleasure. We'll wrap this up for today, and we'll have to do this again soon, Kel. I think we need to make this like a regular sort of quarterly hang for this podcast because it's always such a pleasure. Thanks for your time today, guys.
Thanks, Kel. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye bye.